305 people killed in a horrific terror attack at a Muslim mosque in Egypt on Sunday. The attack was waged by the Islamic State. The terrorists detonated a bomb in the center of the mosque. Then they lay in wait and attacked people as they fled the burning building. The terrorists opened fire on the worshippers with guns and blocked their exits with vehicles they had blown up. The terrorists even fired on ambulances and first responders at the scene. This is the attack.
Hundreds have been killed in the deadliest militant attack to strike Egypt in modern times. Witnesses say a bomb struck a mosque in the town of Bir al-Abed in the North Sinai region. Scores of gunmen set up outside the building in off-road vehicles, then opened fire on those trying to escape, and rescuers rushing to the scene. More than 100 are also reported wounded. There's been no immediate claim of responsibility, but Egypt's battle against insurgents in Sinai has worsened since the 2013 revolution and now includes members of Islamic State. Attacks have expanded past military and police in the desert into cities and civilians. Houses of worship for Muslims and Christians alike are targets, such as this year's Palm Sunday attack on a Coptic church that killed some 47. They've also targeted local tribes viewed as collaborators. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has declared 3 days of mourning in the country, vowing vengeance on the perpetrators. Security sources tell Reuters the military conducted airstrikes in the area around the mosque just hours after the attack occurred.
With me now from the Center for Security Policy, Kyle Shideler. Kyle, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Liz. It's always a pleasure.
All right, Kyle, in a moment, I want to get to the overarching question of how do we defeat ISIS, because clearly when they wage an attack that kills 305 people, the deadliest attack on Egypt in modern times, we're not close to defeating this ideology, this terror group. But before we even get to that, I want to ask you, this attack was against a Muslim mosque. Why a mosque and why this one?
Well, I think we have to understand that for Islamic State in the Sinai, they view Sufis, this was a Sufi mosque, they view Sufis as essentially apostates or heretics engaged in shirk, that is, a crime of Islamic law for putting another on equal with Allah. So they simply don't view Sufis as Muslims the way the rest of the world does. And so they view them as a legitimate target, the same as any non-Muslim.
Right, and I guess that's what we're seeing here. Now, in addition to this attack, which is, so heartbreaking, the idea of over 300 people dying as they were worshiping, as they were exercising their religious beliefs is absolutely horrendous. But at the same time here in our country, we have a video that's been released by ISIS that's threatening attacks against the Vatican at Christmas time. We have threats to assassinate Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump here. Kyle, how do we defeat the Islamic State? How do we defeat ISIS once and for all so that they're not making these threats, which they follow through on, and killing people around the world?
Well, this was a fairly complex attack, which is not surprising considering the fact that we know that they were targeting this mosque for at least a year. As a matter of fact, ISIS publications had mentioned this particular mosque before. So you're right, they absolutely carry through on their threats, and we should be aware of that, and we should consider that as we prepare our defense posture. That said, I think in the Sinai, this could be viewed in a way as a positive outcome. And the reason I say that is because they've moved from hard targets, military targets, police targets, to soft targets. And they've done that because they have to, because al-Sisi and the Egyptian government have been pressing them very, very hard in the Sinai. I think this attack will cost them whatever goodwill they may have built up with various Sinai tribes. So I think this is going to put them on the defensive in the Sinai. And despite the horrific incident itself, it may mean that, in fact, ISIS is in trouble in Egypt. So that's a positive.
Right, and that's a common feature of terrorism. People don't resort to terrorism unless they have no other option here. They engage in traditional warfare in whatever method that is. If they don't have the option to doing that, if they don't have the political motivation, if they don't have the resources, the finances, the fighters, they resort to terrorism because it's the only way media will pick up their political agenda here. But go back to this, and I'm talking about the United States here defeating ISIS. So everyone talks about their grand plan to defeat ISIS. We have people saying, we need to bomb the crap out of ISIS, to paraphrase President Trump. reform Muslim leadership or this ideology isn't going to be squashed. Surveil radical Muslim mosques and squash these radical clerics. Some people even go as far to say ban Muslims, although I don't support that. Stop with the political correctness and call it what it is, radical Islam. If you see something, say something. I mean, I can go on and on here. People talk about the propaganda war, cutting off their finances, the military action against them. What is the answer to defeating these people once and for all?
Well, I think, Liz, you really nailed it, which is that there is no one answer. All of those things have some element at play, whether it's controlling security at immigration, doing a better job surveilling Islamist mosques and Islamist organizations inside the country, targeting them militarily where they are able to set up command and control centers, where they're doing recruiting, where they're doing training. All of these things need to happen. And they need to happen in conjunction. And when you let any one part of that puzzle slide, you're going to have a problem. You're not going to see success. So we need to be able to move on all fronts and get things firing together if we're going to be successful.
Right, and I wish we would, with all due respect to all the progress that we've made, even under President Obama, but specifically under President Trump, in defeating this ideology. We need to take it all the way. We need to coordinate all of these things and squash this, because hundreds and hundreds of people, Muslims around the world, Christians, are dying. They're dying at the hands of this radical ideology. Kyle, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.